I'm a knowledge management practitioner. I used to teach knowledge management, and I just think it's great that this is being acknowledged by the PMI now. This is using existing knowledge and creating new knowledge to achieve the project's objectives and contribute to organizational learning. It's great. First of all, you want to achieve objectives, of course. But the point about organizational learning is hugely, hugely important because so much is that's done from project to project is rework. It's what we call reinventing the wheel, and you want to avoid that if at all possible. You want to get better and better and continuously improve as an organization. Prior organizational knowledge is used to improve future project outcomes. And this is where knowledge created by the project is available to support operations and future projects and phases. Now, we remember operations is the daily management of the business. What separates a good from a great project manager is someone who thinks about day one use. Now, day one use is transition to an operational team who must then expedite any issues. Every project manager has to have that close relationship with the operations management team. All projects create new knowledge. They all do. And there's a type of knowledge that can be codified and documented. I can write down the steps I took to do something, and that's explicit knowledge. But then there's tacit knowledge or know-how that's personal and difficult to express. Now, for example, the slide presentation for today's lecture is basically comprised of explicit knowledge. My tacit knowledge is my bringing to you stories about my previous experience doing this that's unique and difficult to express, multiplied by the fact that I also by now have some tacit knowledge, some expertise and skill built up, okay, in actually lecturing. So that's the difference between explicit and tacit knowledge. Now, the purpose of managing project knowledge is establishing links between team members and reusing existing and creating new knowledge. Now, here's the thing. Don't just assume because you're thinking, well, I'm happy here, that your team members are happily collaborating and sharing. They might not be. You need to establish an environment that the employees feel comfortable to share. In an environment with a lot of turmoil, that's difficult. If people don't trust that the company is going to do right by them, sharing may be adversely impacted by an adverse impact on trust. So you have to keep this in mind. Now, if you do this and you get people sharing and documenting and sharing their tacit knowledge, which is probably the most important thing, this fosters knowledge sharing and integration. Let's talk about some misconceptions about knowledge management. Knowledge management is not documenting everything. Knowledge management instead is capturing and sharing lessons learned. That's really what it is. The goal is to ensure that skills from the team, experience, expertise that is used before, during, and after the project. Now, it's important, as I've said, I'm going to say it again, to create an atmosphere of trust. Trust. So employees are motivated to share. If they don't trust each other or you, they're not going to share. Do not fool yourself. Organizational culture is important too, because sometimes I've been in situations where my immediate team feels comfortable because we're good, but the organizational culture isn't supportive. That's not great either, because that doesn't foster trust. Helpful tools and techniques. You want to network with people, obviously. I hope that's obvious. You can establish what they call communities of practice. Now, I've done whole lectures on this, but basically it's a team of like-minded people that organically comes together to share. It's really not managed by with a strong hand by management. It's allowed to grow and be organic. Shadowing people to really understand what they're doing. Having workshops, huge one, guys and gals. Storytelling. Telling a story. Do you ever think telling a story is knowledge management? Well, it is. That's why I try to tell as many stories as I can. That's why I come up with as many case studies as I can in my classes, because it's a way of storytelling. People learn that way. It gives them an orientation. Information management, the lessons learned register. I cannot emphasize enough how important the lessons learned register is and how often people don't do it And even when it's done, sometimes lessons learned evaporate into the air. Lessons learned registers evaporate into the air. And throughout, support and interaction are crucial. If you have an organizational knowledge repository, if you have it, well, that'll include the configuration management, many financial data, historical information, and lessons learned. That's a good thing. Issue and defect management data, kind of good to find out if things are broken that way and keep that information so that when you run into that in the future, hey, has this happened before? Process and product data, previous project files. Now, this, I have to say, we'd love for this to be a dynamic knowledge repository. Many times what you're going to find it's a filing cabinet or it is a shared drive someplace, and that's okay. A lot of times it's Microsoft SharePoint, and that's okay too. My point is, it's good to have it. You know, I want to throw something out there. People are knowledge repositories too. So again, it comes back to the tribal knowledge. If people have been working there a certain amount of time, you always have that one or those two people that just happen to know everything from having been there. They have a lot of influence too. So obviously in this day and age, I'm going to say obviously, you're going to have some electronic means probably of storing the stuff, but just don't be shocked if you don't. And if you don't, you have to establish your own knowledge repositories.